Got a pre-roll. Oh, no, that's not a pre-roll.
Oh, Leo.
The Dorkening and all its shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussion and or scenes that have adult content, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and or graphic language. The show is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
And here we are. We are now live for another episode of the Wicked Horror Show. Here with us today, we have Kevin.
What's going on, everybody?
Yo.
Hey, everybody.
Tony.
What is going on, people?
And Tony, would you like to introduce our guest?
I will. We have Thomas Fisco, the co-writer and star of the movie Scare Me. How are you, Thomas?
Very good. Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot.
So, Scare Me. Going into it. Well, first off, I was looking up at the IMDb. Did this started as a short, or was it like I was looking at the cast from Scare Me like a couple years ago, and some of the same cast. So I was curious if like that actual short is part of the movie or if it was refilmed.
So it is actually part of it. When we first took this undertaking, I want to say we started coming up with a story 2014, 2015. Obviously an independent movie's budget is always a concern. Part of the story we wanted to tell led itself to kind of an anthology feel. And also, some of the marketing we thought about with attention spans and everything else. But in the end, it really made sense for us because we didn't have to have all the money at one time to film one really big production. We basically took it as like, look, we got enough money to shoot one of the shorts. Let's knock that out. And then we'll take that one to festival, get investors, and shoot the next one. And that's kind of what happened. The first one we shot was, I want to say it was put out in 2016. And we did that short, edited a little bit, but is the exact same footage that has been around. So
nice. And right off the bat, the first thing that struck me was the title scene, like when the title comes up, I'm like, this looked amazing. It was really cool, like the way that it was done, and it made it look like a bigger budget, because it was just done. So it was obviously thought out, the title scene.
Yeah, Yeah, that was one of the more creative, fun parts, to do all the different, title slates and specifically the opening credits for. We got lucky as well. There was a DJ named Mike Curd out of Seattle. I was there visiting a good friend of mine, and we went to this awesome bar called Lovecrafts. You guys would love it. It's like a horror-themed steampunk goth bar.
Nice.
And they've got tons of horror memorabilia everywhere. And we're just having a drink, and all of a sudden we just hear this awesome synth wave music, and me and my buddy both looked at each other and go like, holy crap, this is amazing. So I just contacted the guy, started talking to him, said I got a movie, and now he's got a bunch of music in the film. And if you watch the trailer as well as that opening sequence, that's his music. So it kind of, when you get the music in that sense, it kind of leads you down a path for something really creative with credits,
Oh yeah,
and pacing. So
yeah.
So yeah, we got really lucky with that.
Now, I must say, because nowadays it seems like there's a lot more anthologies coming out, which I enjoy, because sometimes certain movies, it gets monotonous and you're like, I want something a little bit different. So having, anthologies, you get a little bit of everything. And now you get, I guess you would call it two kinds of anthologies. You get one that is like, has an an arc to it, I guess you want to call it. It has like bits and pieces, or you have one that's completely like out, like different,
ABC
like the
Death,
ABCs of Death, where each one's a little bit different. This one, it has a story arc, and then inside it's got, its own little stories. Like, were you ever leaning towards that side where each story was a little bit different, or you always knew that you wanted some kind of bigger story in between?
It was very important to us that it all kind of tie together with different threads. In fact, I'd say for anyone watching it or through another viewing, like, look for little Easter eggs, because there's a lot of connections that you won't kind of see on the first pass through. But there's a lot of anthology. I think what I said about the production and being able to shoot things is one part of it. Plus, you can acquire different shorts. That was one of the things we didn't really like. Not to say anything against ABCs of Horror. That is a true anthology. It's kind of like, if I buy this movie and I don't like two of them, the next one I'm going to like. I'm going to enjoy something in this, and they don't have to be all put together. If you go back to the 80s with, your Creep shows or your Tales from the Dark Side films, kind of the similar idea. You'd have some cool, scary, twisty type of anthologies, but the overarching story would kind of be secondary and not really have any meaning on it. We kind of like the idea, first and foremost, our shorts are a lot shorter. A lot of times you see an anthology film, the shorts are 30 minutes. Ours are a little bit shorter because our overarching story was what we really wanted to kind of focus on. And when we set out, we also wanted the shorts that were told to do two things. One, harken back to, horror tropes that everyone's kind of used to, the stories we've been told through the years and how they've changed. But also, we really wanted to make a point that the character who's telling the story, that story was specifically to them, would inform you on who they were. If you go back and you watch it, you'll notice that, some of the social beliefs and political beliefs that some of these characters have is kind of dictated in their stories. So you can kind of see a little bit more about who they are. And some people miss that, but we kind of did that on purpose. That it's not just a one-off story, that it is actually being told through the person telling it, and that it's part of the whole theme of the movie.
Yeah, and I think I thought, not obvious, but I could definitely see that, like, where the stories definitely changed depending on who was the person telling it. I was looking for Easter eggs, and I'm pretty sure I didn't find any, but like, even to the point where there was a scene in like a bar, and I was looking to see what was on the special of the day. I'm like, I wonder if this is going to play into it later on. I got to remember tomato bisque. I have to remember that. But nothing came about. But and
it's
actually,
funny you said that, because we purposely kind of dressed our sets very specifically and would put things in, and it's one of those things where when I see a scene where it was just kind of arbitrary, I don't know if, like, was that a good decision, or, because you don't want to put too much at people either. But it's funny you brought up tomato bisque, because every time I see that, I'm looking at the same thing going, man, maybe we should have said, like, New England clam chowder to reference Salem's Lot or something.
Yeah, I'm like, is the blood in this one going to be really just tomato bisque? Like, is that what it is? That's going to get burned in the face? I don't know. We actually, one of the co-stars in the movie we've actually had on the
Tommy
show.
Vegas.
Yeah, Tommy Vegas
Oh,
has been on before.
yes. Yeah,
he
she's
was
doing
awesome.
she's doing a lot of stuff. She's especially in Vegas, but
Someone's getting a phone call.
another phone call. Like no,
Oh,
had
Mom.
no call until just now.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's popped up in a lot of things.
Yeah.
What was
They've
she
had her on
promoting
a
when
while.
she?
I don't know. Do you remember what movie? it was?
What was it? The Slumber Party something? It had Destiny Orndorff in
Oh,
it.
was this okay?
I can't think of the
Sorority something. I don't remember. It was a while ago. It was
Talk and I'll find
at least
it.
over a year ago, I think.
I
But
have it
yeah,
somewhere over here.
we haven't had her on like since then. It's been a really long time. I know she's been busy. Like I follow her on Instagram, so I see like all her work stuff.
Yeah, that was one of
the. Is it through your work, or do you know her like just as an actress?
So I mean, the movie itself is really kind of a who's who of Vegas filmmaking because again, we had so many shorts, we had to hire so many people. I've always made the joke that if like someone was coming in to make a film, say from LA, we could give them Scare Me and they could see just about everything, most of the talent that the town has to offer, as well as locations and crew. I actually worked with her. We shot Scare Me before that. She just auditioned and did a really good job. But then later I ended up being in a short with her called Axmas, which was written and directed by a guy named John Ward. So I got to actually do a scene with her outside of Scare Me, which was kind of fun. But no, she just has that that small demeanor where you're not going to expect too much, and then she can just kind of flip a good switch and be pretty sincere and pretty what's the word I'm looking for, aggressive, I guess.
Yeah.
So she just, there's certain people when you go in the audition process that the second you see him, like, oh, that's her, that's him, and she was kind of one of
the people that I'm expecting to see pop up more, and I just don't see her in a lot of stuff. At least that I'm seeing. Like
Party Night, wasn't it? Party Night.
No, it was Inverted with Tristan Clay.
No, Inverted is the one that they're working on now.
Yeah, I think them two started Party Night. But
I'm pretty sure it's Party Night.
Let's all argue. I'm just kidding.
Okay. No, I'm just looking at show notes, and we had
maybe
her.
she's in Inverted as well. I don't know, but either way, she's great, and I'm hoping to see her pop up in some more stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Yo-Yo, you got anything?
Unfortunately, I don't have Amazon Prime.
What?
I know, right?
But that's a good, segue right there. If you want to see this movie, it's available right now. If you have Amazon Prime, you can stream it for free right now on Amazon Prime.
Or you can sign up for Amazon Prime and take advantage of the 30-day free trial, which unfortunately I have done that before, and I'm running low on email addresses. So...
Oh, Pumpkin Escobar needs a new email address.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one thing is... I was just going to say one thing. We made it really easy for you. So if you check the show notes down below or up above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us, I put a link right to the movie right there. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can check it out. Don't watch it now because you're watching this show. But after this, yeah, totally. You have multiple screens, have it going on in the background.
Only you could do that, Leo. Yeah. With like 10 screens.
Yeah. But I do have to say, if you have to pick which, like one of them to watch on your phone and one of them to watch on like a bigger screen, just watch us on your phone. Watch the movie on a bigger screen because it's warranted, right?
Yeah, totally.
No one wants to see larger versions of us.
Yeah.
Right.
We do have the trailer, and actually we should play it a couple times tonight. Would you care to introduce the... Let me find the right button here. Thomas, would you like to introduce the trailer?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard. We had two versions of it. We had a teaser that was a little bit more... I guess people didn't know quite what it was about, but then we obviously did the official one, which is the one I'm assuming you're going to see right now. And it kind of gives you the idea of what it's about. But yeah, I mean, here's Scare Me.
Here we go.
We're camping tonight. Exciting.
Well, we got 2 more victims to pick up for.
Victims?
Oh yeah, Barry here's obsessed with having a ghost storytelling competition tonight.
Okay.
Well, what do you get?
To live.
So if you were planning on going, but it feels a little overwhelming, then please just stay in this weekend.
They're trying to scare people away from going to the festival.
John, are you okay? John.
What the heck? Why am I supposed to kill you?
Where are you going?
You want to come romp with me, Babylon boy?
I am no murderer.
You're not you.
Well, then who am I?
And we are back. That was the trailer for Scare Me, which, like we said, if you're just joining us, it's available on Amazon Prime, and I got a link down below or up above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. Excellent anthology film.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, like Tony, you brought up, like ones like ABCs of Death, and even like what is it, Tales of Halloween and stuff like that. They're really good, but they're all different directors. And sometimes it's like Thomas was saying, sometimes you'll get a stinker in there and you're like, okay, well, the next one's probably going to be better. At least with ones like Scare Me, and there's a couple other that I've seen not that long ago as well, where it's the one director, one writer, or, you know, he's involved in all of them. You kind of get a feel more for that director and stuff like that. So I actually kind of like that as well. I mean, the other ones are good because they'll get a lot of other filmmakers involved, I guess, but you also run the risk of having some stinkers in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with like Trick or Treat is another one where it has like that overarching story, and then everything kind of comes together. I mean, Trick or Treat is one of my favorite ones as a date. Like, but we were saying ABCs of Death, you get like 2 or 3 good ones, and then it switches up, and you're like, that one, didn't catch my fancy, I guess you want to call it, but
but with this one, I didn't think there was any stories that were weak at all, and I liked how you played with different kinds of monsters throughout. So it's like with the first one, I don't want to go into too much, but when in the first one, it was a certain style of baddie, and then the second one, it was like almost like, okay, I wonder if he's gonna stick that route like the whole time, but you didn't. Like I'm a big Universal Classic Monster guy, so I was like, ooh, I wonder if there's gonna be something else coming up here. But yeah. So are these ideas you've had for a while, or is this something that you just wrote as it went along?
It's been such a long process. I know that we were really influenced by the political landscape in a lot of ways, which I think you guys could probably also see in the movie. Hopefully no one can tell which way we skew. We try to like paint both sides, but I think the thing that kind of got us was, again, the idea of what fear is, what stories are. And you mentioned like the classic monsters, they all started somewhere, and they're stories that have changed or, kind of had a trope through the different times. And yet we all kind of realize that they're kind of commenting on some of the same fears that we have socially and everything else. So it was really easy for us, I think, when we kind of had an idea of what the story we wanted to tell, that we had to use these, both in the horror genre, but then just in general, we had to use these tropes that people were familiar with, that maybe harken back to, I don't know if you could consolidate it like an ancestral DNA, but that they stand for something else. And so in that sense, it kind of, they all kind of fit in place once we kind of knew the direction and what the story we wanted to tell was. And we also like the idea, because again, there's some things in here where we hope that there's second and third viewings and that there's a deeper kind of dimension to the movie. But on the surface, we also wanted to make it appealing for a general audience. And the best way to do that is to give them, they have to have a slasher segment. You have to have, kind of hit the different stories they've seen before, but hopefully do it in a little bit of a different way, or give them a twist at the end that makes it familiar but different. And so, like I said, I know the writing process, we went through a lot of different phases, and also the filming kind of changed, like the tone and different things at different times. But the ideas kind of came to us pretty fast once we kind of got on track with the story we wanted to tell.
Nice.
So, and we're both horror fans too, so it was kind of that idea, and both horror and also I'd say David Lynch type stuff. We once you start getting into movies, it's kind of like when you're if you're a magician and you go to watch a magician. Yep. In some ways you sometimes can't even enjoy it because you're just trying to deconstruct it half the time.
Yeah.
But that was our goal, that we could do something that people that weren't film buffs would like, but also have something else in there for people who do like film to kind of go, oh, look what they're doing here. What does this mean? How does this connect?
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Tony.
No, I was going to say, talking about, certain couple of the shorts, I was like, okay, it's a different take on certain type movies that I've seen before. There was one, I must say, that I was just like, okay, this one is a lot different than, I'm used to seeing.
Was it Eternal Hunger?
The one in the garage with
yeah.
I was like, okay,
that's one that I was not expecting to go that way as well. Like I thought it was going to go a completely different direction, and then I was like, oh, it's this. I'm like, wow, like that. I did not expect that to happen. Like I meaning like the wrap up of that story. I was not expecting that. So yeah, that was a surprise too. I was like, oh, he's getting away from like the monster-y kind of thing, and I was like, oh no, I was wrong. Like.
The mannerisms on that guy's face though was just messed up.
The guy that was doing the deed.
Yeah. You talk. Eric Sharp is the actor who did that, and he just knocked it out of the park. And here's the thing, as an actor, if you have that kind of role, you really have no choice. In one way, I can praise him, but if that's the role you're in and that's what you were made to do, you got to go 110, 100. Not to say that 110 is even possible, but you cannot hold back.
Right.
That's kind of the thing. And the second I think we did kind of the first take, and you could tell he wasn't. But after that, the combination of the severity of what we were doing. What's odd is when people are uncomfortable, they start to laugh.
Oh yeah.
And that was something that we kind of realized. And there's some of that. We had arguments about, should we let this go on this long? And in the end, Mark and myself specifically were the ones who 100% wanted to do it. And the idea was, no, we want people to be uncomfortable. We want them to go through the transition of uncomfortable, then to funny, then back to uncomfortable again. And then what I found that worked really well in that short specifically is that all of a sudden you realize the audience became the guy watching, and that was the thing we were really trying to do. Because inevitably when you do any movie, speaking of that short, I don't know if you hear the dog. That's Cohagen right there.
Oh, that's the dog that was in the short.
Yeah. So, Zen, come here. Let me see if I can get him in the shot. Zen, come here.
Look at that. It's a movie star.
Look, Zen. Yeah, he's the star of the movie. He definitely was the easiest actor to work with, as crazy as that sounds.
Well, that's what they always say. Don't work with kids or animals in movies. But I guess it's you.
In this case, it's because he made everyone else look bad.
Yeah. So the one thing I was thinking during that particular scene, I was just like, more power to this dude. That's amazing. But I'm like, if I was an actor and like there was a casting call and I was like, all right, they're like, we need a guy to look like this and be just super duper creepy. You're it. I'd be like, I don't know if I'm offended or not. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the downside for him is he's probably typecast now. I mean, I can't see if he puts that in his reel.
Oh my
that's
God.
The only role he's getting. You know.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine. Like he puts that in his reel, and all the calls he gets, they're just very, very weird.
Yeah, but he'll have a lot of work. So I mean, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, the one thing, like, so that story was obviously completely different than a lot of the other stories that were involved. But the wraparound story, I almost thought it was going to go a little different there as well. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. What I thought was going to happen, I was completely wrong. But there was a lot of cool decisions with that final story, and it kind of plays into some of the other stories as well, like what you did with the eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, some people would just do like a glow or whatever, but I actually like the effect that you used on it was more like a static-y kind of thing. I really like that. It was a good choice.
Well, and we were hoping not only did that look cool and was something that we had never seen before, so the second we did it, we're like, yes, that's it. It also kind of, again, it's one of those Easter eggs that kind of points at what we're trying to say. And we're not trying to say any one thing. There's a lot of overarching kind of themes and symbols, you know, that are going on in the film. But that's one specifically. And what's interesting about that is some people still don't. Most people kind of have their own ideas or stuff, but a lot of that, we found that people were kind of confused by that too. And inevitably, we kind of like that. We hope that people would think about it more and they would kind of come to them. But I mean, the idea that it's static and it's TV, that was a clue in and of itself, you know, we hope. So, but yeah, it was just one of those cool things where a lot of things in this process, it sounds weird and hocus pocusy, but after doing a film like this, it feels like the universe in some strange ways does speak through you. I don't know. I kind of believe that creativity is that in a sense, because there's things that would not work out right, or there would be things that would come up or something that would happen that we didn't plan on. And it was almost like an epiphany of this is the way it's supposed to go. It's almost like there was another hand that was beyond our conscious thoughts that was kind of doing things. And that was one of those things that just kind of popped into our heads at one point. It wasn't originally written that those were going to look like that. And I don't remember when it actually just popped into our heads, but some things just come together and it's like getting that piece of the puzzle that lets you put 10 more pieces down, you know?
Yeah. And I liked how it, like, even though it was in the wraparound story, I mean, it popped up in some of the shorts as well. So it kind of tied everything together in that aspect as well, even though it was different people telling stories and stuff like that. It was, I don't know. I dug it. It's like you know, when you think of certain kinds of like anthologies or certain kinds of movie, there's like one thing that'll stick out, like, oh, that looks like the thing from The Thing, or like, you know, from Brain Scan or whatever. It's like the memorable part of not the only memorable part, because that other stuff is definitely memorable. You know what I'm talking about. But the eyes thing, it's definitely something that you know, it stands out for sure.
Well, one of our other fears too, I mean, again, we all come from a different generation. I don't know that static is something that current generations have anymore.
Yeah,
you know, so it was almost an anachronism in that sense. But at the same time, I think people still know what it is, even though they haven't experienced it for themselves. But yeah, and that was another thing that we really liked about the anthology format and some of the stuff we wanted to do, is we were hoping that there would be several different things. And kind of like you said, I mean, everyone has a different take and everyone has a different favorite part, which is nice. And I going back to what you guys are saying about ABCs of horror, it's the same type of thing. I think inevitably, you know, you can watch that in several go-throughs because they're short, they're quick. You know, I want to go to bed in 20 minutes, so I'll watch one of these, but you don't have to sit and watch the whole thing. The upside and the downside of that is there's so much different. There's going to be something for everyone, but you're not going to have that constant hit. Every one of them is not going to be successful. And I think this goes back to what you're saying about having one director, at least, you know, a couple people doing the story. Like, you have to have a vision that does kind of tie in together. But in the end, we hoped that there were several little things or cool moments that people would remember, and everyone can have their own favorite thing, you know, or at the same time, that one thing that they didn't like as much, you know, but we were hoping that there'd be enough of the good parts that people would, you know, kind of say, oh, that's the movie with this, and when it had that, oh, and there was that eye thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Now, since there was so, you know, many different shorts and whatever, how many different locations that you have to film in? Because you have, you know, the outside part by campfire, and then, you know, some of the other shorts and houses, or don't want to go way too deep into it, but like, how many different locations that you guys have to tape in?
Well, that was what I was kind of saying about the, you know, both the actors and crew, but also different locations available in Vegas. We hit, I want to say probably at least 10. I know the garage thing you were talking about, that was actually my mom's garage, which again, that's the upside to a lot of independent films, is there's a lot more personal touches to it, because it's not a studio. You've got to use what's around you. But yeah,
you talking about the garage scene again? And he's like, "Hey, it's my jam." I understand.
Yeah. So I get to see that all the time when I go see my mom.
Yeah.
But,
so did your mom see that scene, and what did she think of? Like, why did you do this in my garage?
She did, and what's funny was we actually kind of shot a little teaser where we put my stepdad in his underwear and his wheelchair, and she was wearing a robe and a mask just to kind of mess around. Luckily, they have fun with all that type of stuff, so
that's good.
They were all for it. I mean, granted, we didn't tell them exactly what was going to happen while we were doing it. They heard a lot of things from inside the house while it was happening, and then of course, at the premiere, they're kind of having that, and that was something else that we really enjoyed. Not only about the people who lent their houses, but also the really fun thing about doing an anthology in the way we did it. We didn't give everyone the entire script, so if they were in a short, they got their part. Even the main cast, they got their part. Only a couple people. In all honesty, none of them knew the ending, because the true ending was only, without saying it, there's only 2 characters at the actual end. So we were able to kind of keep wraps on that. But the fun thing about that is that the night of the premiere, not only did they get to see themselves, but then they got to see everyone else's work in it, and they got to see the whole piece put together. And so, like, going back to what I said about my mom, she's at the premiere and her face is kind of down. She's flushed because not only, does she know that her son came up with this idea, but that also it was shot in, 10 feet from where she watches movies every day.
That was one that I was just like, oh, this is definitely, something on a different scale.
Would you say that story was your favorite story, Tony?
Actually, I think I forget the title, the one with the cop, like the video cam with the cops.
On that one too, like that, I didn't see, like, when the twist happened, I was like, oh yeah, obviously, but I wasn't thinking that was going to happen. Like, I wasn't going to think, it's weird. Like, I usually I can figure out what's going to happen in the movie. I didn't see that twist coming, like, as clearly as I probably should have. I don't know.
Well,
yeah,
it was a little hard to see.
Unnatural Born Killers, and you're talking about location. We were right across the street from the Stratosphere Hotel in Vegas at a little. It was actually a weed shop that one of the guys that were worked at, and that was also one of the one that was had a guest director. That was Conrad Glover. He's down in Georgia now doing some good work. But yeah, we got to bring him in, and then I had more of a hand in the one we were just talking about, Eternal Hunger. But again, Mark had the foresight, and he did the camera work on everything, and of course did all the editing. But really everything was through his and my own producing. And that's, like I say, we were able to have guest directors, but kind of have it sit in the same world and not feel too different. But yeah, and that's always the funny thing too, is, anytime you do one of these type of movies, you always want the twist. So it becomes that thing, is like, oh, are they going to see this one coming from a mile away? Does it have to have one? And in the end, we really hope that, while they were entertaining, hopefully they did, a lot of these did catch people by surprise a little bit. So it's nice to hear that
yeah,
you,
and it's not, I mean, it's something where I'm just like, I guess I was trying to figure out something more. I mean, it wasn't predictable until it happened. I was like, oh yeah, like, as soon as it happened, I'm like, oh, of course. I'm like, whatever. Like, I just didn't even, but usually I would have tried to figure it out by then. So Leo, you said that it wasn't very obvious to you.
No, it wasn't. And actually, we'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute here. Jack Shipley says, loved Scare Me. I just watched it yesterday. And want to remind everybody watching, if you are interested in checking out Scare Me, there's a link down below or above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And it's available on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, you get to watch it for free. And we're going to take a short break for Deadly Grounds Coffee. If you love coffee and want to support local businesses, they're a local roaster here in, not in Groton, Connecticut, in Connecticut. The most awesome coffee you'll ever have. Death by Chocolate is my absolute favorite, but they got tons of different flavors, non-flavored.
I thought pumpkin spice was yours.
Yeah, pumpkin. Well,
his go-to is the Death by Chocolate. I'm more of a non-flavored guy. I mean, I like the flavored coffee too, but I'm more of a like Hell's Fury and Dark and Deadly.
Yeah, and the good thing about it doesn't give like a acidy, aftertaste. It's nice and
Doesn't
smooth.
feel like it's peeling the enamel off your teeth or anything like that.
Exactly. So here's a zombie talking about coffee, and then after that, we'll play the stay tuned for the trailer. Here we go.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Forgot we're camping tonight. Exciting.
Well, we got 2 more victims to pick up.
Victims?
Oh yeah, Barry here's obsessed with having a ghost storytelling competition tonight.
Okay.
Well, what do you get?
To live?
So if you were planning on going, but it feels a little overwhelming, then please just stay in this weekend.
They're trying to scare people away from going to the festival.
John, are you okay? John.
What the heck? Why am I supposed to kill
Where you going?
You want come romp with me, Babylon boy?
I am no murderer.
You're not you.
Well, then who am I?
Way too deep into anything, but it's like one of those deals where even if it's not my favorite, if it like there's been so many movies that I've seen that I will remember for the rest of my life. Maybe not the most my entertaining movies, but it's like that's gonna just gonna harp me back to it.
That's
like,
a scene you're gonna remember. You're gonna remember that
like
scene.
the movie Rubber. I'll
Yeah.
remember that movie for the rest of my life. Is it the greatest movie I've ever seen? Did I like it a lot? No, but a killer tire, killing people by mental telepathy. It's just like it's one thing that I'll remember. So that scene, I'm like
it's
I'm
like
gonna
Howard the
remember
Duck.
that.
Everyone remembers Howard the Duck. It's really not a great movie. The Garbage Pail
Hey.
Kids eat the garbage, literally. And I remember the hell
Killer
out of it.
Clowns from Outer Space was one of my
exactly.
one of my all-time. Now that I look back on it, it's like, is it the greatest movie I've ever seen? No, but
it's still a good time.
At that point in time, it's one of those movies that when I was younger, I tried to tell people, it's like, you're watching a movie about killer clowns, and the only way to kill them is to pop their nose, and they would put you in cotton candy and a big ball and all this stuff. And it's like they came down on a spaceship in the shape of a circus, and people looked at me like I had fucking 10 heads. I'm like, movie, check it out. But it's like one of those things where it's like, I'll remember this, no matter what, because now we said so many times that a lot of the horror movies nowadays are cookie cutters. It's like, okay, it runs right into each other, and it's like, okay, which movie am I talking about? Am I talking about A, B, or C? And it fits A, B, or C. So it's like, so you need something a little bit different to, you know, peak.
So we're kind of picking favorites a little bit. You mentioned the one with the body cam. I actually, the original short that you guys did, the one with the what is it, the wolf,
the radio caster, the real watchdog.
Watchdog. That I mean, I liked them all, but I think that one got me. And part of it too was the makeup in it too. I thought was really good. I was like, wow, this is really good for like a low budget movie. It was on point, I thought. So and I just really like the idea of it as well. I mean, I like the idea of all of them, but I think that one it grabbed me, you know. So I'm like, all right, I'm in for this. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What about you, Leo? Now I'm just interested.
Well, I'm gonna go a little different route. The monster in the closet.
That one was really good too. That's actually one that I could see, like, even though it was one of the shorter ones.
Well, what I really enjoyed was Thomas's character when he, you know, you're actually narrating what's going on, and you have that connection of, you know, back at the campfire and the story being told, and you know, I think that really
he was calling him out for being like, oh, let me guess, this is happening, it totally was, but
that narration just added a punch.
Played out more. I would like to see a longer version of that, because it just, like, it was creepy, like, right off the bat. So I don't know.
Yeah, that was one of those things where we've heard both, that they liked the way it was turned out, but then a lot of people wanted to see the story not kind of get interrupted and kind of play itself out, and that was that's kind of one of those areas where the universe and fate kind of breaks in. You know, you guys have mentioned special effects on independent movies. You know, sometimes they're hit or miss, and we had a couple issues with that one, and the only way we could salvage some of the footage was to cut it in a certain way. And we had originally had a different place marker for that short, and because that happened, it was like one of those things where we were kind of disappointed, but they're like, well, wait a minute, if we can only use it this way, then we need to move this one to this spot because that's the interrupted one, you know, without trying to give away too much of what happens. But in the end, it's one of those things where sometimes you don't want to give people too much. And that story, specifically, especially with the kid, you know, he did such a good job, and, you know, and has those one little, you know, he's got the one line that creeps you out, you know, and then there's that one, you know, bloodshot creeps you out, or the eyes that creep you out. It just kind of, it felt right to have that be the one that got interrupted. And also, that's the point in the movie where we're kind of hoping the audience is going to start getting uneasy and things kind of in the main story go off the rails.
Yeah.
So from a filmmaking standpoint, we're like, well, how do we make people uncomfortable? Well, let's just edit the shit out of this, and right when they get comfortable, we pull them out of it, you know, a little bit, and we just go back and forth. And I personally think, I've seen it, and I, you know, wrote the movie and everything else with Mark. I still watch that scene and I feel uneasy every time I do it, just because of the tension and the way it rises. Hopefully other people got that too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, it is, again, it's one that I would like to have seen drawn out, but the way that it was done, I think that's what made it, you know, something that I want to see more of this, because it really kind of went like, oof, you know. And then going into the main story, the wraparound story, and that's when you change a bit. You know, your character like ramps things up a bit, and but yeah, I mean, and the wraparound story is great too. So I mean, Yo-Yo, I don't even know, is there a way for me to give you my Amazon login? I wonder if that's doable.
Probably, I don't know.
Like, we'll figure it out. Either that, I'll just start ordering stuff from your Amazon, whatever.
Well, with any luck, we will have a couple other outlets. It's going to Prime first, and hopefully it'll hit some other things here shortly. The other thing we're getting ready to do is actually launch a physical. With everything that's been going on, we've kind of, you know, got behind on that. Our distributor got it on Prime pretty quick. But actually for Tony, we're even thinking about maybe doing a couple VHSs just to kind of have a collector side to it. Nice. But you know, that way Yo-Yo can actually see it on another format or a physical. I do got to say, while we were on that break, I wish we were rolling, because I love what Yo-Yo had to say about how impressed he was that we got kind of hung up on one short. We hadn't even gotten into the whole movie yet. Yeah. That was like one of the best compliments I've ever heard. So
we got hung up on the one short, and then Tony's like, "That's not even my favorite story. Like, that's not even my favorite one."
That's like like super high praise to be like,
yeah.
So like caught up to this like one part. It's like, well, that was just a really good part of it. So that's not even like my favorite part of it. Like, that's just, you need to see a movie if that is like people's reaction.
Yeah. It's and it's good with independence. There's a unfortunately there's a lot of kind of like toss away stuff. We've been lucky recently, and we've been seeing a lot of like really good stuff. I think, anyways, the last good handful of shows, I think, are movies that have kind of left a mark on me. And the one thing that I'm hoping things get back to normal soon, so these movies can continue to happen. So it'd be weird how do you make a movie with everyone 6 feet apart from each other?
Yeah.
Well, you had what do you call it? Unfriended.
Oh yeah,
not every movie.
We're doing a movie right now.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah,
that's how movies are going to be.
Yeah.
Movie stars.
I just wanted to break in real quick and go to Yo-Yo. If you've been following Yo-Yo, he has a different background every single episode.
Yes.
Where are you today, Yo-Yo?
Let's see if I can move enough so you can see the fire in the background.
Oh man. Well, it's appropriate.
Totally appropriate.
I was expecting to see E.T. and Elliot.
Hey, same here. Yeah.
Sorry to disappoint you, but I figured it was appropriate.
I think that's really cool. The one scene where like the stories are about to start and they mess with the fire. I was waiting to hear one thing, and I'm like, I guess you can't really say it, but I was waiting to hear one line from a TV show I used to watch when I was...
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
The Midnight Society or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a big influence on what we wanted to do. We kind of wanted to do an Are You Afraid of the Dark, but for adults to some extent,
Yeah.
That's the whole reason for the fire at all. That's kind of why we threw the dirt in the fire and had the ridiculous effect there to kind of like pay homage and kind of give people a little bit of we can laugh a little bit right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is there's definitely humor peppered in. Like he just keeps doing it, and like he's like, I just feel like I have to do it, and he's just throwing it in the fire. Does that even work?
He mentioned something. He's like, "Oh, this is how you started, right?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, I was waiting. Submitted for your approval, but."
So we do.
It was there. We just didn't hit it that far. But yeah, that was the whole reason for that. So.
Just a quick question from the comments. Actually, before that, I have to ask: are those glasses? Did you make them glow with like After Effects or special effects, or were they actually lighted up?
No, they were practical. We knew exactly what we wanted, and we found them, and then we actually made them wear them. Which really it's so funny because when you start messing with lighting and campfires and everything else, you're always kind of hesitant. How's this going to look on camera? And the second we saw it, it just popped so well. It was everything we wanted it to be, But yeah, those were actual practical glasses. I don't know that it would have been really difficult to do in After Effects. I think.
Yeah, I was watching the lines thinking, these have to be real because you're not seeing like the wave or something like that. So yeah. I need a pair now.
And yeah, you need a pair. You're gonna go blind.
Somewhere in my office, I have a pair like that.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Wow. Were they hard to find? Like, did you have to go on Wish or something to get them? Or you're in Vegas.
I got them. Yeah.
Thomas, you're in Vegas, so I don't know if they're just readily available in Vegas. I don't know.
Probably, but we got them online. Because also another thing you want to do when you're doing movies is have more than one prop, just in case one gets broken. So we had to get multiples, and along with everything else we were purchasing, we just did it all in 1 or 2 orders. So
yeah, but that's good. And so what's next for you? Like, where are you going next? Like after this whole thing is done, do you have any movies in the works?
Well, we've definitely been talking about stories for a part 2. Right now we're really kind of excited, and again with everything that's going on, it's kind of slowed us down. We kind of wanted to do an interesting type of grassroots marketing where maybe we do some premieres in some smaller towns and some one theater theaters, and like I said, promote physical, but also kind of get back to that feeling of going and experiencing this independent thing. Like when we were growing up, I mean, horror movies were that, they weren't mainstream. And we kind of want it to feel like it, not necessarily an event. I mean, that's probably being a little pretentious, but just that idea of like being able to let's get some popcorn, have some fun, and have a social aspect to it. Because at this point, the next thing in the independent phase is how do you distribute? How do you get people to watch it? And hopefully word of mouth is what does it. And that's why I love hearing that people are enjoying the movie, because that's really how independent movies are going to be seen. But we want to give a little bit more to this and get it out there. And then, like I said, we've been working on ideas for a part 2. We've got some story concepts. I know Mark, he wasn't able to be here tonight. He's doing an actual shoot, which is, again, with the current times. Luckily, he's good at what he does because he's always got work. I've done a couple things here or there. Like I mentioned, Axmas, a guy named Drew Marvick who makes a cameo, and there's kind of a local Las Vegas guy. He's doing a sequel to his film, Pool Party Massacre. So hopefully I'll make an appearance in that.
I was about to say, Pool Party Massacre was one that I've seen it on. I want to own it just because of the physical media. I saw the cover for it. I'm like, I need to own this, but I've checked it out on VOD. That's another fun one. Yeah,
but beautiful cover, and that's one of the other things. I got to give a shout out to James Boosma, who did our poster. Just a gorgeous packaging, and also that's another thing that just, again, we got lucky with. I mentioned Mike Kurt, the guy who was the synthwave DJ in Seattle. We also got a guy named Vince Loria, who's like a guitar maestro, who did a lot of our scoring, and also there's a local band. I don't know if you can see the shirt, Strange Mistress, who I'm a big fan of, and I went out to one of their shows and say, hey, can we use some of your music? And that's the other upside to sometimes doing indie things, is you're going to collaborate with people and get to know people that you never would have gotten to get to know. And it's kind of funny because you see when people make it in film, it feels like they lose something. There's a passion. They're not doing as much. They're not being as creative. And I just love the fact that this movie brought so many different people together and in multiple areas. Like I said, between the poster art, the music, the acting, the skilled crew, it's just hard to have something like that come together on all fronts. And it's when it happens, it's really inspiring. So
yeah, definitely. And it's something that can almost make and break a movie as well. The movie could be great, but if you have like a horrible poster or a horrible cover, and it's streaming or even physical media, it's got to catch your eye. Like all of us growing up, go to the video rental store, and it's the cover that will drag you in, So it's like, if it's just something, like there's movies that aren't even horror movies, but I saw like the cover, and I'm like, that just looks really cool. That's the way that I found The Professional. So I was like, the cover for that looks awesome, so I need to watch this movie, and now I love The Professional. So it's like, I don't know. So that's a plus. It looks awesome. So
I mean, that's the reason why I still just having, picking it up and looking at the cover art. I mean, sometimes it bit me in the ass many a times. I'm like, this is the coolest cover art I've ever seen. And I watch it, I'm like, oh, it has nothing to do with the cover art. And it was
well played, sir. Well played with that fancy cover art.
Touche.
And I was duped by the boobs and the mask.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, but it's still why I'm so, enthralled with. I mean, I guess you get some of it on the Amazon Prime and so you can look at the covers, but it's not. Yeah. That's why I need physical.
Yeah.
But that's actually another weird thing that's changed. If you go on some of these streaming platforms like your Netflix, they don't even show posters anymore. It's stills from the movie. It's
and
so
it varies
odd.
by
I can't
person.
wrap my head around it.
It varies.
And
by
I would
person.
say,
yep. They're all, especially with Netflix, it changes depending on your watching habits. They put pictures on to specifically get you to your attention on it. So somewhat the same concept, but kind of creepily.
Oh yeah. Very creepy.
Real quick from the chat room, Sergio wants to know from Thomas, what horror movies scare you?
So there. One of the movies that still to this day freaks me out every time I see it is Event Horizon.
Oh.
I'm a real big fan of, I guess you could call it Lovecraftian, unknown type of stuff, but just when you're watching something and you can't quite figure out what it is, but it's just odd and just kind of shakes you to your core, like from a dimensional or a hell type of way. Those definitely, and again, I love that feeling, but it's also sometimes hard to watch. Another one that did it, and this isn't a horror movie, but if anyone's seen Requiem for a Dream, you watch that movie, like a great movie, but I can only watch it once. the idea of sitting through that movie again, and that's a different type of like, you know, you just feel filthy after that. Event Horizon, I usually go back and watch at least once a year, but I always kind of get that dirty, creepy. The type of movie that makes you actually believe in God, I guess, is the weird thing, or heaven and hell is the scariest type of movies for me sometimes. I would say Hellraiser kind of does that too, because it's just so odd, but there's something in it that's so different that you have to be afraid of it.
Yeah, it's very like seeing Hellraiser when I was younger, than seeing it later in life. I'm like, wow, this is like way more adult than I remembered it as a kid.
Yeah.
Like it's just very, very like S&M, like just really, really weird. But yeah, I mean, it didn't affect me that much as a kid, I guess. Or maybe it did. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of movies you just like, I feel like I'm going to be on a list because I watched this movie. You know?
Yeah.
Like, In Bad Lieutenant, where I'm just like, I should not be seeing this right now. Like, this is crazy. Like the piano, this scenes I shouldn't be seeing. But I don't know.
But we'll forgive you for going back and watching the same scene over and over again.
But I'm on a list because of how many times like the worn out on the tape is it's obvious, you know.
I'll give you another interesting personal thing. The Exorcist is another one that I'd say to this day is still pretty scary. But I used to play football in high school, and before a game, I would watch one particular scene in that like over and over again, the crucifix scene.
Oh, geez. I
don't know why. I guess in my mind, I'm like, oh, this must mean I'm really weird, or this is going to amp me up. But, you know, there's some, and I think it goes back to what I was saying too, about there's some scenes where they're so uncomfortable, you'll kind of have to laugh.
Yeah.
I think when you can get people that uncomfortable, you're kind of touching what's really scaring people, because most people don't want to admit they're afraid. So how do you get rid of that tension? Oh, it's just funny, you know, but you've kind of shaken them.
I'm imagining now is like you guys in like a huddle trying to psych each other up, and just like, you're like, all right, on three, like, your mother sucks cocks in hell. Like,
yeah, let Jesus fuck you. And actually, I used to do that type of crap. So,
oh, that's perfect. Anyways, we're about that time.
We are. So, you know, before we wrap things up, just want to remind you the movie tonight is Scare Me, and it's available on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it right now. And I made it so easy. There's a link right down below or up above, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. And Thomas, it was an absolute pleasure having you on this evening. You know, it's hard to tell that this was an indie movie. It's just, you know, you did a really fine job with it. Absolutely loved it. Where do you like people interacting with you?
Right now, Instagram is great. Scare Me the Movie is the tag over there, and also Facebook is Scare Me the Movie. That's the best place. You know, we're always trying to get a bigger following and you know, try to do a pretty good job responding to people. But obviously, you know, we all have our personal stuff too. If anyone wanted to reach out to me personally, I mean, I basically handle Scare Me the Movie on Instagram, but also Thomas Fisco is one, or on Facebook. And but yeah, I think the best one is Scare Me the Movie on Instagram, probably.
Sounds good. And again, I have the link for that down below or up above. Yo.
Boy Meets Phone on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Also, Yo St. Laurent, same places.
Tony?
You can find me on Tony Has Nine Fingers on YouTube, where I do movie reviews, unboxings, stuff like that. Especially now, trying to do as many reviews as I can to, you know, for the people that can't go out, at least they could check out some movies to keep their, you know, keep their interest and stuff in these crazy times. Tony Has Nine Fingers on Twitter. Tony's Movies on Instagram, where I show off the movies behind me, and of course here on the Dorkening Wicked Horror Show every Tuesday night. Kevin?
A-Knuckle on Twitter and Instagram every Tuesday night here. I'm also doing movie reviews with the 13th Wolfman over on the audio side of the stream. I'm also part of Black and White Fright and Secret Underground Hideout, all of which are on the Dorkening Podcast Network. Leo?
Yeah, and for me, just Google Leo Pond. You find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not, but more importantly, head on over to thedorkening.com to find out all the shows on our network and follow our awesome guests with the information down below or up above. And for me, you know, we'll be doing the Dorkening tomorrow. Also, still toking with doing that tomorrow. Roger Cabler is going to be our guest tomorrow.
Nice.
The Ron Williams guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that dude. It's crazy how much that dude looks like Robin Williams.
Oh yeah, yeah. His
Actually, he
mannerism.
doesn't even look like him. He transforms himself into him. It's
Exactly.
crazy.
I was watching an interview today.
That guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he also does a crazy good De Niro, where he like turns into De Niro. Like he legit looks like De Niro. It's so weird.
Totally. So that's going to be on Still Token With tomorrow live at 7 p.m. I want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you guys later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.